Good morning, all. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by LeBear's Casino. Ronnie Rantz alongside TK Tommy Krysan. Tommy joining us from Court Street Cafe, right in the middle of downtown Port Allen, Louisiana, just a stone's throw across the Mississippi River Bridge from downtown Baton Rouge. It's Court Street Cafe. He's there every Monday. All right, TK, this weekend, oh, by the way, you want to know why I'm rocking the Louisiana Raging Cajun hat? Uh, and that is because I mean, like I mentioned this the other day, so it wouldn't be a surprise if someone's listens to the show. But I am in Muncie, Indiana. Um, Muncie, Indiana, the home of Ball State University. David Letterman, of course, the most famous Ball State alumni who talked about it all the time on the late night show. Andrew Whitlock, the controversial sports reporter, commentator, podcaster. He's from here too. Um, and that's it, Tommy. I mean, that's it. That's all. And ball jars. You know the jars, the ball jar company, like the white jars or whatever that you put all your food in, and you seal it up, and the bottom it says ball jar. The ball people. That's why Ball State University exists. Are from here, so that's where the jars originally made. I'm sure they're made in China now, but anyway, that's it. That's all we got. But I'm here because the Raging Cajuns are opening up tonight against Ball State University. And first game of the year, Quantus White is the new coach for Raging Cajuns. He's a New Orleans native who was an associate head coach for Houston, the Cougars, who've been great the last couple of years. He was named the coach back in March. And if the one thing you know about the Houston Cougars is they have some of the most intense practices ever. You know, they're known for just basically getting after it and playing tremendous defense and just being super physical in their practices, and that carries over to the game. So we'll see. The Raging Cajuns, not much expected out of them. They're a preseason like number 8 or 9 in the conference, in the Sun Belt Conference. But there's some folks internally, including my brother, that's who I'm with, and others that are close to this program that think this team could surprise some people. So we're here for opening night. My brother has a hospital that his company owns, a little small LTAC hospital here in Muncie, Indiana. So we're here to to do both. And I'll be there tonight. I'll let you know on Wednesday what that experience is like. A little opening night at Ball State.
That's cool. It's a little different, something else for you to check off on your bucket list. I have a question for you, Ron, and I don't think you know the answer, but I got to come up with it anyway. How many hats do you own?
Well, I purge my hat closet probably once a year, once every other year and a half. You know, I kind of go through and thin out the ones that I know I'm probably never going to wear again, or the ones that are in bad condition, or like, let's say it's an LSU hat, for example, and I've got two LSU hats I like better than this one, and I'm never going to choose that one, so why keep it around, right?
Yeah.
Um, at the moment, Tommy, I can tell you, I've got like these little hat rack things, these little plastic things I found on Temu or something. And, you can put like maybe 8 hats in a sleeve. And I think I have 4 of them. So I have at least 30. I know I got at least 35, 36 hats right now,
Yeah,
and, and
I would have thought it was more than that.
well, I do a good job, like I said, of purging,
Yeah.
of just chunking hats away. Usually, every 12 to 16 months, I'll go through and throw away a half a dozen or more.
Because I got over 20, and some of them are a little racked out, and I do what you do. I think I ain't wearing this no more, throw it away.
Yeah,
There's been many times when I haven't bought a hat because I'm like, I got enough hats. But
right.
like when I went to the Players Championship, I got me one, got you one, because you brought me hats from other
Yeah.
places. So I got to get that one because it's the Players, and I might not ever come back here again. But I don't have a lot of other hats. I mean, I don't need any more
I
hats.
like this one a little. The rope hat's big, and then I like the little 3D lettering on it. I
Yeah.
don't know if you can see this side. I really like with
Well,
the little fleur de lis and everything.
Red's
Um,
my favorite color. It always has been. When I
yeah,
was a little leaguer, our teams all were red and white, so I guess that's why I like red. But
yeah,
so anyway, but no, so that's a good looking hat.
yeah. It says Louisiana on it,
Hopefully, it
so.
helps the Raging Cajun win tonight.
Well, look for it. By the way, Ball State's colors are red. They're the
Yeah,
Cardinals. So you'll see a lot of
What?
red in the stands.
I'm gonna test you again. What coach from New Orleans ended up being the head coach at Ball State?
Oof. The only
Yeah,
Ball State coach I know is Rick Majerus, who was a
okay.
great basketball coach back in the day.
I gotta give you a hint. Think arena football.
Oh, from New Orleans
Was
that ended
coached.
up. John Forcade, maybe.
No, no, no,
Wait. You talking about basketball,
no. But
football?
football.
I don't know. Give it to me.
The guy who coached the when Gail Benson owned the arena
Oh,
team,
the
Mike
Voodoo.
New, the Mike
Mike New.
New, New.
Yeah.
When he left the Voodoo, I think he became the head coach at Ball State. He took one of JT Curtis's sons with him on the staff up to
Gotcha.
Ball State. Now that's been a few years ago, but when you said the other day you were going to Ball State, I was like, that's where Mike New coached.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, Mike New. Who that was back. I want to say 2005, 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, 8, somewhere up in there. 5, 6, 7, maybe. That's when arena football was doing well, like arena football around the country. They had Bon Jovi involved. He owned a team in the Philadelphia Soul. You had John Elway was involved with the Denver team, the Colorado team. Um, Gail Benson and other. I think the Cowboys, Jones and them owned a team in Dallas. So there was some real money and facilities and players and all in the league. And the average player, Tommy, was making around $40,000 a season playing arena ball, and that ended up being not enough. They wanted more. They were threatening to unionize, and I think when they did, that they folded the league, and that was it. Arena football went away for a couple years, came back under the old format where they only pay them a few $100 a game because they couldn't afford it the other way, and they killed themselves. The players killed themselves by being greedy. They weren't happy making 40,000 a year playing arena football just a few months out of the year. They wanted more and more and more, and they bankrupted the league basically. You know. Um, all right, TK. Let's talk a little bit about it was an off week for LSU, so let's go to the Saints first.
Okay.
Saints now 1-8. They go on the road to Los Angeles. The Rams were a 13.5 point favorite. We all said on Sports Shorts radio Saturday morning, we were all 4 or 5 of us in agreement to take the Rams minus the 13.5. And sure enough, the Rams win by I think 24.
Yeah, 34-10.
Man, your reaction to Tyler Shuck and the Saints and all
Well,
that whole thing.
we had a triple header of football at Most Pleasant Sacrament yesterday, so I know very little about the Saints game other than the score, and it wasn't a close game. I read a couple of recaps of it, but Saints 1-8, and it going nowhere in a hurry. Now the NFL trade deadline is tomorrow afternoon. If the Saints are going to be active, they need to just stockpile draft picks. I don't, you don't need players unless it's going to be a guy who can impact for many years. Just get as many draft picks you can if they make any moves. But there'll be a big name or two that moves before tomorrow's trade deadline in the NFL. But the Saints are just going nowhere in a hurry. They're going to host the Panthers in the Dome this week at noon. The Panthers are 4.5 point favorite coming into New Orleans.
Panthers, by the way, with a big win on the road this week. The New Orleans Saints need to they need to dump players. They need to just
Yeah.
stop with this. We've got any chance, just unload players. Demario Davis can get you some value probably. I know you re-signed Alvin Kamara, and I know we love Alvin Kamara, but I mean, Alvin Kamara is as much of a fan as much as the fans love him, what is his value to the Saints when they're so bad? The Saints are gonna be so bad the rest of this year, and they're gonna be bad next year. They're still in cap hell. They still have unproven QBs. They still have a depleted roster that has to get better. Like, as much as I love Alvin Kamara, like, let the dude go. Get some value for him. And they need to do the same for every player that they can possibly get a top 5 draft pick for. I mean, one of the top 5 rounds. If you can get a 1 through 5th round draft pick for a player, do it, because that's what you need. 1, to get out of cap hell, and 2, to try to rebuild for the future.
I gotta make a correction. Mark corrected me. Saints are at the Panthers this week, not in the dome. So thank you, Mark, in New Orleans. I know who Mark is for correcting me there. So it's Saints at Carolina, not in the dome. Thank you,
By the
Mark.
way, the Carolina Panthers went on the road and beat the Green Bay Packers this past weekend. It was the biggest upset for Green Bay in quite a while. 13 and a half point favorite with the Packers, and the Carolina went in there and won. And look, the Panthers only being a 4.5 point favorite over the Saints at home. Take the Panthers, coach. Take the Panthers.
100%.
Yeah, all day,
100%. Yeah.
all day, and do it now before that line goes up. But TK, I mean, let's just stop with the nonsense. Just unload all any talent you got if you don't want to. By the way, the Philadelphia Eagles, now they have a real chance, right? I mean, they have the quarterback, they have the roster, they have a real chance, especially on offense. Defense, they've been awful this year, and they've addressed that. That's what good teams do. The Eagles went out, traded last week, got two defensive backs. They just picked up Phillips, the linebacker, first round pick from the Dolphins. They just brought him in this morning. He played for Vic Fangio, their coordinator in Miami in 23, and had 6.5 sacks in 8 games for him that year. So they're bringing him in. I mean, that's Saints don't need to be acquiring players; need the Saints to be dumping players.
And acquiring draft picks, and you're probably going to go 2-15 no matter who you put on the field. So put some young guys out there. Maybe you polish up a diamond in the rough, and some guy who can really help you next year because you put him out there this year. So the Saints and the Pelicans combined are just a disaster. If you're a sports fan, pro sports fan in the city of New Orleans, it's tough times.
The Jacksonville Jaguars won the game of the day, 30-29 over the Raiders. Their kicker kicked a 68-yard field goal right before the halftime, right at halftime, and then and he's the guy that kicked a 70-yard field goal in preseason. But he kicked a 68-yarder, which is now the all-time furthest field goal in NFL history. It's amazing what they're doing, and of course the new kickball where they can use it all week and
Yeah,
all that kind
that's
of
the
stuff,
difference.
and then combine that with the thin air of Las Vegas, made it a no-brainer.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I read that article a week or two ago. How they giving these balls to the kickers and they're breaking them in. It's like when you get the new baseball glove, the ball doesn't stay in it. Well, it's much better to kick a football that's been kicked X number of times than one that you just ripped it right out the wrapper. That's why we're seeing 54-yard field goals look like an extra point hitting 3/4 of the way up the net. And you're seeing that, and these guys are just nailing these balls. So they may change the kickball rule back after this year. Who knows?
Um, let's talk about college football for a minute, Tommy.
Oh,
So let's go around the state of Louisiana for a second. We'll start with the Raging Cajuns since I have the
yeah.
hat on. And the Raging Cajuns had a big win. They were a 6.5 point dog on the road against South Alabama, and dominated. And their quarterback Lunch, who we talked a lot about Lunch, the former Lutcher Bulldog, who's a redshirt freshman quarterback who had led the Raging Cajuns from a 17-point deficit against Marshall a few weeks back when LSU played at Ole Miss. Well, he did something that had never been done in the history of Raging Cajun football on Saturday night, and he completed 93% of his passes. It was just absolutely dominant. Set the all-time single game passing completion percentage mark. This is for a guy who's known as a running quarterback, a guy who was the third string quarterback in August, and ends up now he's poised to be the future for the Raging Cajuns at that position.
Yeah, I was glad to see that they won 31-22. That was cool. I always pull for everybody in Louisiana to do well, and to see the Cajuns get the win, that was a good thing. And hey, maybe they can build some stuff around this quarterback and get it going in the right direction.
Also, McNeese got a big win, a much needed win. They destroyed Northwestern State at
Imagine that.
home. Yeah, again, go against the bull, go against the demons with everything you got each and every week. I want to bet. Wish I'd have put more. Um, uh, Tulane kind of, they were the talk of the town. Their coach was being mentioned for LSU or Florida, or, all these jobs, and still may be. I'm not saying he won't. Oh, by the way, Auburn's job is open. You Freeze let go. Um, but Tulane then goes and lays an egg on national TV Thursday night against UTSA down in San Antonio. They lose. Right. Louisiana Tech wins big on Friday night. ULM loses again. Southern lost, and Southeastern had a big win against East Texas A&M. But let's go around the country. Biggest takeaway from the weekend, Tommy, of the Power Five schools was what? Which game or what was your big takeaway?
Wow, I mean, I think the Tennessee Oklahoma game was an incredible game. For a lot of reasons. Georgia Florida, I got to see a good bit of that one. But I mean, college football is just so different. And like when I saw yesterday Hugh Freeze was fired, I can remember the mindset years ago when a coach got fired, especially during the season. It got everybody like, "Whoa, major breaking news!" Now every Sunday, Monday, it's like, okay, what coach gets fired this week? I think these ads and these presidents are going to have to realize that not every team can be in the 12-team playoff every year. I mean, it's going to be pain. There's going to be years when you're not in it, and you're just going to be firing coaches. Now, Hugh Freeze's buyout reportedly somewhere around 15 million, which I guess is doable. Auburn will take care of that. But man, it's zero SEC coaches fired last year or changed spots. There's going to be a lot. There's more to come. Probably could be a change at Carolina. Could be a change at Kentucky. Time will tell.
Yeah, Kentucky with a big giant win against Auburn,
Yeah,
and that's
that's
what
what
did.
led to Freeze going boot.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn's excuse me, Auburn scored 3 points against Kentucky and lost 10-3. And for a guy who's supposed to be an offensive guru, that's just not going to fly. But how about the resurrection and the comeback for Texas Longhorns?
Yeah.
Okay, which is now setting up the big game this week, Texas and Georgia. Um, Arch Manning had his best game of his
Did you
career.
see his quote about that?
What's that? I didn't see
Arch
it.
Manning made a quote. He said, "Well, he said yeah, Ronnie jumped away for a second. He'll pop back in." And I'm gonna tell him the Arch Manning quote after the game. He said, "Maybe the concussion helped me." Because he got the concussion the week before, and
Right.
then all of a sudden he had good numbers, team wins. The other team came back late, but they still won. But he said maybe the concussion helped me. It got big laughter out of the media room.
Well, it was a big win. Vanderbilt went to Austin, and look, it was over a month. It had been like a month and a week since Texas had played a home game. It had been over a month since Vanderbilt had been on the road. Obviously, Vanderbilt had survived a tough gauntlet of games at home. Uh, Vanderbilt was a dog in this one, and actually ended up covering the kickoff line. Vanderbilt ended up being a 3.5 point dog by kickoff. It started off at 2.5 point dog, grew to 3.5. They were getting blown out, had a 21 point comeback in the fourth quarter, and then came up three short. So Vanderbilt showed some moxie. Pavia did his thing down the stretch, and still, I think, kept his name in the Heisman race. Although he'll probably get to. I hope he gets to New York. He's not going to win it, but hopefully he can get to New York because to me he deserves it based on what he's done for that program. And then for Texas, I mean, they survived a couple of OT wins. This was a big win to beat a ranked team at home. And more importantly, for Arch Manning, he threw for over 300 yards and was outstanding in this game. I'm curious to see, as you mentioned, if now this gives him that confidence and we see him take off and live up to maybe some of the expectation we had before the season.
I mean, I'm not wild about Coach Sarkisian, but he made a good comment after during the week and then after the game. Those that want to talk about Arch Manning, and that includes me, let the whole story get written before you start, putting an absolute out there that he can't play at Texas, he can't play in the SEC, whatever. I mean, because we'll have to see. And obviously, Texas think he gives them the best chance to win. Otherwise, he wouldn't be out there.
Let me just bring up a name, a guy that has the Denver Broncos 7-2, and that is Bo Nix.
Yeah,
How many times was Bo Nix ruled
written
dead
off.
to
Yeah,
rights in his career at Auburn, right? And what Bo Nix did, as far as he much like Jalen Hurts, if Jalen Hurts doesn't leave Alabama and go to Oklahoma or Bo Nix doesn't leave and go to Oregon, we don't know what those guys become. And because they left and went to offensive minded coordinators and systems that gave them the chance to spread their wings and do some things, they turned it around, and Bo Nix now is on the rise and of being one of the, he'll be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL after this season, and Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl champion. So, um, you know, you got to let guys, quarterbacks need that marinating time. They need time to mess up. They need time to watch and learn. They need 4, 5, 6 years like those guys got. And then now, and if you have the makeup, and Bo Nix does, dad's a coach, all that stuff. If you have the makeup of the leadership, and you have the toughness, and you have the smarts to know the playbook and everybody's position and all that kind of stuff, if you have that skill set, obviously you got to be able to throw the ball, you got to be able to run, you got to do something special. But if you have those key that leadership, intelligence, and toughness, you can play the quarterback position at a high level. And obviously you got to be damn good to be at high level in the professional ranks. But you could be a damn good college quarterback with just the things I just mentioned, Tommy.
Well, we've talked about this many times. You look at the history of the LSU quarterbacks who waited their turn. Okay, from Matt Flynn to
Matt
Rohan
Malk.
Davey, Matt Malk, and two Heisman Trophy winners, Daniels and Burrow. And now Nussmeier waited his turn, but there's not a lot of help around him. So those guys that get seasoned is the word, I guess. Like a Bo Nix, you make that comment, and maybe that's the path Arch Manning ends up taking. I mean, Peyton Manning would have never beat Florida when he was at Tennessee, and that's a big rivalry. And then, struggled early in the NFL, and then, Hall of Famer. So I guess we got to let it play out. No question about that. But it just adds to there's so many storylines coming out of the world of college football now.
Well, Arch Manning is going to have 2 more years of eligibility remaining after this season. And obviously, he's not going to come out this year. So he's going to have another full season at least, if not two. Um, and so, who knows how good he's going to become.
Well, and they talked about Bo Nix, when he went from Auburn to Oregon. And I remember somebody, 61 starts he had in college, something like
Right.
that.
Something crazy like
And
that.
I think Sean Payton made that comment. Like, here's a guy that started 61 games. Do I want that guy over the guy that started 6 or 7 games?
Right.
Yeah, you do. Because coaches they need to be shown what you can do. That potential doesn't mean a lot to the coach. They believe in when they see the guy can do it, then they're going to let him keep doing it.
Well, and then especially 60 starts at the highest level of college football. The experience you get, the fact that you're not going to have nerves. The environment's not going to intimidate you when you go on the road to Kansas City and the Chiefs Nation is doing its thing. And speaking of the Chiefs, they lost to the Buffalo Bills. How about this stat, Tommy? The Kansas City Chiefs. They lost on the road in Buffalo. The Chiefs are 0-4 this year in one-score games. Last season, they were 12-0 in one-score games. I mean, that is incredible how things have changed. Now, that said, the Chiefs are 5-4. They're by no means, out of it or anything like that. But they are definitely missing some explosiveness with their team this year.
Yeah, no question about that. They're the one-score games. They always talk about that in the NFL. You got to find a way to win them, just like we always talk about that baseball. When you got that lead in the 8th inning, you got to win that one. You got to finish that thing up. Well, one-score games is one of the more telling stats among a long list of stats in sports. I mean, because that's find a way to finish it. That's what you got to do, because it's all about getting the win in the NFL. No matter how, what score. Come back, fly home with a win, or go back to the locker room with a win, and that's so important.
Patrick Mahomes had a sub 50% completion percentage for the first game in his career. 44% completion percentage on Sunday, the lowest of his career. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills quarterback had the highest of his career, 88% completion percentage. So I'm actually surprised it was only a one-score game.
Well, and those two teams know each other pretty dang well. They've played a lot in the season, in the postseason, in the last bunch of years. And I know the personnel changes on the roster are there, but the systems have been the same for a while in both of those places. And so not surprising to see it a one-score game. But hey, we'll see what the Chiefs do. They should be in the playoffs. I think they'll be. I don't know.
Tell me about Tremonti's, Tommy.
Well, before we get to that, the World Series wrapped up. The Dodgers win the World Series. Ronnie, I said this at the end of the Rougarou season when they won the Texas Collegiate League. You have baseball and you have postseason baseball. It's different. Ronnie, I've tried to do this in my head. There were 5 or 6 guys on the two teams combined that were playing in a game that if this was a game in June or July, they weren't in the roster. They were in the clubhouse, okay? From George Springer to these guys, people just because it's the World Series. And I watched every pitch Saturday night. I did not miss a pitch. It's a game of inches. I mean, all the storylines. We talked about the ball lodging underneath the pad when we were on the radio Saturday. That was the Friday night game. So many things in this World Series that were just amazing. And so some pretty darn good baseball players out there.
Tommy, I felt bad for Toronto, but at the same time, I credit the Dodgers. That Toronto was up 4-2 going into the 8th inning. They give up a solo homer in the 8th, solo homer in the 9th, a solo homer in the 11th, and the Dodgers do, and they win it 5-4. But that's not even the story. That's baseball. The story is how many chances the Blue Jays blew to win the World Series, whether it be Game 6, whether it be Game 7. But the biggest one in Game 7, and I believe this was the 9th inning, Tommy. Tell me if I'm correct. The 9th inning, the Blue Jays had the bases loaded with 1 out.
Correct.
Ground ball to second. They threw him out at the plate, right?
By an inch.
Okay. If you go back and watch that play, people, I would have lost my mind if I was the manager. We're talking about winning and losing the World Series on one play. And the one play was bases loaded. It's a tie game, bottom of the 9th, ground ball to second. The guy takes 2 steps to his right, backhands it, throws home, and it's a forced play at the plate. So you don't have to tag the runner. They reviewed it. He was out. It was super close. The runner at third, I can't remember who it was.
Connor Falefa.
Did you see? He took no secondary lead, Tommy. No secondary lead.
He came out and said he was told not to take a lead because they were worried about line drive double play. Now, and I don't buy that. I don't believe they told him don't take a secondary lead. I'll never believe that unless the manager
They may have said, hey, freeze on a line drive or heads up for a line drive. But let me tell you something. No coach in the history of baseball has ever told a base runner, do not take a secondary lead. Okay.
So the only way I believe it is if Schneider, the manager, would come out and say, yes, I told him that. So, but no, that was a mental error because, and he tried to say, because that's a guy that hits the ball hard and we didn't want the line out double play. You can't, that's like thinking I don't want to play today because I don't want to get hurt. You can't think that way. You got to think.
So Tommy, if you look at the replay, you know how they have the little cutouts around the base paths, the dirt cutouts, and I want to say he's on the dirt in the cutout area, little cutout portion. It was the shallowest, shortest secondary lead with a runner at third. Now, keep in mind, he understands the situation. The bases are loaded. He's got to get the home plate before the ball does. It's not just beat the throw and slide in safe. He's got to physically run to. So he should take a big secondary lead, and he doesn't, and he gets thrown out by inches. If he shuffles and takes a normal secondary lead, Tommy, the Blue Jays are having a parade today.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I've seen they have the aerial shot and they circle where he was. I mean, I just that was mind boggling, and to be so close, that's the play that may be the one that sticks around, like the Steve Bartman thing with the Cubs, or the Oriole guy that reached over the fence in Yankee Stadium, whatever. I mean, it was a bad move, bad time to make a bad decision.
And for the Blue Jays, they brought back Savage to throw, and he gives up the homer in the 8th. And that was a home run in the 8th he gave up that he would never give up with normal rest, right? He hung a changeup up and in. I mean, missed his spot horrifically terrible. He never missed a ball. He never missed a spot like that in any of the two starts that he made. You know, that was a guy who was throwing on short rest type of miss. And I'm just shocked that you would put the rookie in that situation. I know he was super dominant as a starting pitcher, but like he just did his job. He just got to the big leagues like a minute ago. He doesn't even know where the Waffle House is near the stadium. He's just figuring out the name of the street out front. And you're gonna put him and you're gonna ask that of him. Hey, look, rookie, whatever your name is, you're starter, but now we're gonna make you a reliever. You're gonna throw in short rest, World Series guy. You don't have a whole roster. You don't have anybody else in the
Well,
eighth inning up to other than to bring back a recycled pitcher on short rest. Like you're
well,
not the Dodgers. I get the Dodgers doing it because their bullpen's trash, but I was shocked by that.
Well, and again, good. Most major league hitters don't miss mistakes. Okay, those three solo shots you talked about were mistakes that were up. One was a slider, one was a changeup, and those guys don't miss mistakes, and 80% of the time they don't miss them. So yeah, that's going to be some second guessing all over Toronto for quite a while. Well, they got a good team. I think they're going to be a solid team and a playoff team for years to come, based on what we know. Bochette's a free agent, but we'll see what happens with that. But it was a great World Series if
It
you
was
look at
great.
the seven. And Ronnie, if I would have told you, Ronnie, I want to bet you that the World Series MVP is going to be from Japan, but it's not going to be Otani. I think you would have said, "Okay, I'll take that bet, TK."
Yeah. Listen, and
Yamamoto
I
is the
said this.
only guy to get 3 wins on the road in the World Series in baseball history.
I said this earlier, and before the World Series, and I'll say it again. The Dodgers have now won back-to-back World Series for the first time in over 25 years, and the Dodgers are going to be in the World Series for the next 3-4 years. They may not win it, but they're going to be in it.
Well, they've won 3 of the last 6. And, of course,
Yeah.
all the talk about, well, they paid for it. Well, and their payroll is a little bigger than the Gumbo Gators and the Rougarou. They have a larger payroll. But
Red Sox are paying for it. Yankees are paying for it. Everybody, all the big boys. The Cubs are paying for it. They're not winning the World Series. Dodgers are.
So that's it. And they're going to be. They've won 3 of 6. They might win 3 of the next 6. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's baseball. We all know baseball. Yeah, because look, the other thing, Toronto last place in their division last year. Last, and they were a ground ball away from a World Series championship. So
A shuffle go. They were a shuffle go away from a World Series. A
You and I have
secondary
coached a lot
lead.
of baseball. I used to tell the kids at third, especially in a tight game, you get as far off the bag as the third baseman is. They're not going to pick you off. Most teams won't try to pick anybody off third anyway. You're not supposed to do that. So it was just a huge, simple fundamental. How many times you work secondary? It's like PFPs. People go, "Oh, why do you keep doing that?" You got to do it so that when you have to do it correct, you get it correct. And Connor Falefa did not get it correct.
Not at all. All right, TK, tell us about Tremonti's.
Well, I'm at Court Street Cafe.
Tell us about Court Street Cafe.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, red beans and rice today. Friday and Saturday, char-grilled oysters, steak night on Saturday. The Sunday brunch is very popular. You need to check out Jason and the staff here at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. Connect on Facebook and Instagram. They do a great job. Lunch specials, dinner specials, dinner of the week special, char-grilled oysters, steak night, which will be this Saturday. LSU's on the road. The Sunday brunch, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Check it all out at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. Hey, as we always say, please like and share this show, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X. It helps us all. Get this thing and keep it rolling. Like and share this show. Have a good Monday. We'll talk to you again Wednesday morning with another episode of Sports Shorts Daily.